Hello everyone, it's Dylan from Yu-Gi-Oh! Everything, and welcome back to another Yu-Gi-Oh! Video. So I will start this video by saying I enjoyed Go Rush. It's not my favorite Yu-Gi-Oh! It's not my least favorite Yu-Gi-Oh! But with every Yu-Gi-Oh! And with every show, if we're being honest, there were some things that left me feeling disappointed. Whether it was answers to questions I thought we would get, or just the way certain things were executed. And so in this video, I am going over my top 10 disappointments in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Go Rush anime. I hope you all enjoy. Number 10, the final arc. So for me, endings are extremely important. I actually just uploaded a whole video on endings in Yu-Gi-Oh! As a whole, and I was really hoping that the final arc of Yu-Gi-Oh! Go Rush was going to hit a home run, but instead it felt like it hit a single or maybe a double. I really liked the ending episode in a vacuum, but there were a lot of elements of the final arc that left me disappointed. Being in the past in the Sengoku era was certainly a choice, and there were a lot of things that I thought we were going to get that we just never did. Whether that was Otis backstory or Yuga returning, or heck, even like going to a multiverse or Quaidual having a bigger role. There was a lot that the final arc did, like the Gakugen episode and the recap with 3 episodes left, that made me really scratching my head and wondering why. I thought the final arc was a little bit of a letdown, and I certainly put a little bit more weight on it because it is the final arc, and it just did enough to crack the unfortunate list here in terms of disappointments. Number 9, the Earth Demar / Damamu. Earth Demar I thought was going to have a much greater impact on the overall story, and I thought Damamu was going to have a big reveal or big plot twist associated with their character that really just never happened. Like, I remember when all of our characters got carded by Energy Kopiko, and Damamu's reaction to it was absolutely terrifying.
光ってビビーンでペラーなんだよみんなペラーンみんなペラーンみんなペラーン
I felt like there were a lot of foreshadowy things they did with Damamu that made the viewer believe maybe they were going to have a much sinister and bigger role, but sadly it never really happened, and I can't help but feel a little disappointed in the role the Earth Demar and Damamu played in the story. Number 8. 13 episode arcs. So this was actually my number 1 disappointment in Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s, and while I certainly don't have it that high for Go Rush, it still does crack this list. I am not a fan of the structural 13 episode arcs because I just feel like it sometimes makes the arcs very repetitive and predictable. You know, in the early going you're going to get some filler duels that maybe the plot only moves forward in the last 3 minutes of, and then you know all of the plot and all of the lore dump is going to be saved for the last 3 or 4 episodes. And I felt like that sort of pace kind of had people waiting for the end of these arcs rather than enjoying the arcs as a whole process. I feel like they were done a little bit better in Go Rush, where there was more crossover between the arcs, like Quaidual debuting and then having the Quaidual Space-Time arc right after it, but I still really didn't like the formula, and so it's gonna be on this list at the number 8 spot. Number 7, Zujos' final season. Yugioh was one of my favorite characters after Season 2. He probably was my favorite character, and arguably the best character in this show after Season 2. He had an incredible death scene, and I felt the only way you could bring him back is if you were going to do something good with his character, because why waste that death scene? Well, they do bring him back, and he ends up working for the Darkmeister. I thought maybe he was going to double-cross the Darkmeister, but that never happened. Yugioh had a really weird final season. He's still one of the better characters in this show, but he was just searching for his something the entire season, and he just felt like he didn't really have a purpose. And I think, honestly, that was part of why they brought his character back. Like, I think that was what the writers were going for, but I can't help but still feel like they only should have brought him back if they were going to have him, like, do something rather than just aimlessly wander at the side of Yuumu or then at the side of Udius when Udius went back into the Sengoku era. I do feel like he kind of redeemed himself a little bit at the end of the season, but overall, it was a very let-down season, in my opinion, for Zujos, who was such a superstar in those first 2 seasons. Number 6, Yuhi's Alien Detector. Maybe I'm the only one that's still bothered by this, and maybe this is one that a lot of people in the comments will be like, oh, this doesn't bother me at all. I'm sorry, but this was one of the earliest things we learned about Yuhi's character, that his hair would start moving back and forth anytime there was an alien around, and he was able to basically give away to Yuumu if an alien was around. This was one of the first things we learned about his character, and I thought it was going to be a very important element of his character, but we literally never learned why he has this ability or what it means. I remember a few of us speculated that maybe Yuhi is like an alien and not actually Yuumu's twin, or maybe the Otos are aliens in general. And I guess with the ending of Udius being the quote-unquote first Oto, you could kind of use that as an explanation here. But then why doesn't Yuumu have some sort of power like this? I don't know. I feel like that was a big forgotten plot point when it came to Yuhi's character, and I think it would have been cool if we got that, and can't help but feel a little let down that one of the first elements of his character that we got in this show, we literally never got an explanation for. Number 5, lack of new cryptids in the later seasons. One of my favorite elements about Yu-Gi-Oh! Go Rush was all of the cryptids that were introduced into the show. Kawhi Tell was a Kappa. George Jersey was a Jersey Devil. Shout out to New Jersey. Mitsuko was the Flatwoods Monster. Chupataro was a Chupacabra. I loved all of these references to cryptids and cryptozoology. It was one of the coolest things, and it felt like it was going to be a main focus at its core for a very long time in this show, and then it was just dropped in the later seasons. We got like one character here and there, but it certainly was nowhere near the pace of cryptids we were getting on a regular basis early on in this show. I certainly wasn't going to expect 50 different cryptid-like characters to be in Go Rush, but I think it would have been really cool if they maybe gave us 1 or 2 every single arc. Feel like that was at its early core, and they kind of got away from it as the series went on, which is a shame because I love cryptozoology. Again, this one I certainly have some personal bias to. Number 4, Goha Yuna's character conclusion. I have got to be honest, as the finale of Go Rush has gotten further and further away from us, and I've had more time to process Go Rush, I cannot help but feel that Goha Yuna's character conclusion was the worst character conclusion that any character in this show got. I was on record saying Yuna was maybe the best girl character we have ever had in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Franchise. I loved Goha Yuna. I thought her character was complex. I thought it was relatable. She was kind of written to be hated, and I think a lot of people certainly took that to heart, which to me is kind of the sign of a good character there. And she does all these crazy, horrible things just to try to reach Yuga. She takes a shot in the dark on the time machine. And then when we finally see her in the Sengoku era, she's not combative anymore, and she basically has like 5 lines. She doesn't have a duel in the final arc, and that's basically it. Her desire to see Yuga is gone. This iron-willed woman whose entire Season 3 goal was to see Yuga, and she finally gets a time machine to work. And sure, it doesn't send her to the right timeline, but that's all it takes for her will to be broken, and she has no more interest in following through with this plan. Like, I just feel like, sure, maybe you could have explained that in a duel or in a longer Yuna episode, but there was no Yuna-focused episode in that final arc. And man, I really, really, really feel her character got the total short end of the stick, and I hated her character conclusion, was very disappointed with it, and it's number 4 on this list. Number 3, the Vulgarian War. Something that was a major conflict point for the entire first season. I felt still has a crazy amount of mystery regarding it. Like, sure, we can maybe assume that Quaidul, the master manipulator, is the reason that the war started, but we never got any actual definitive confirmation on that. We don't know who the Vulgarians were fighting, and then when they finally get to the stage where they're ready to solve the war, we don't see any part of that solving. That's just how season 1 ends, and when season 2 begins after the time skip, the war is over and it has been solved. I feel like the group that was fighting them would have made for really, really fascinating adversaries, and it's just a real shame that we never got to see it. Like, imagine if in season 2 or in season 3, you had your top Vulgarians against your top anti-Vulgarians, whatever you want to name the group. And the anti-Vulgarians have a Quaidul-like character as well. There's a version of, Udius and Zujos. Like, I think there was some serious potential there. And for how important the Vulgarian War was in that first season, to not really get anything from it is certainly disappointing for me. Number 2, Udius versus Yuga, not happening. This one, to me, is a killer. I cannot believe we did not see these two duel. The only time we ever saw two Yu-Gi-Oh protagonists go at it was Yugi and Judai, very famously, at the end of GX. And when we had another anime where two Yu-Gi-Oh protagonists were interacting with each other and they were associated with each other, I thought it was a slam dunk to see these two duel. The symbolism of your first two Rush Duel protagonists squaring off, mimicking your first two Master Duel protagonists in Yugi and Jaden squaring off 2 decades ago, would have been a fever dream that would have sent fans wild. And somehow we never got this duel. What's more infuriating is the season 2 finale duel. Udius and Yuga are on opposite sides of the coin. Their goals are colliding. So I don't even want to hear from people that, well, they never really had a good reason to duel. Just look at that season 2 finale, man. They were right there, and instead of having Udius duel Yuga, they had Yuhi duel Yuga, and then they had Udius duel Yuamu, who took the duel disc and took the duel over for an exhausted Yuga. I thought after that it was like, all right, well, they're saving Udius Yuga for like the ceremonial duel. And we just never got it. And I will never understand why they didn't give us this duel. You know what? It didn't even need to have an ending. I'll be honest, it didn't even need to have an ending. Judai Yugi didn't have an ending. You can do the same exact thing that duel did, where this duel gets interrupted. I would have been totally fine with that. That, to me, is infinitely times better than never getting it. This is a massive disappointment for me, and it's number 2 in Go Rush. Number 1, Otis. Now Otis was number 2 in Seven's top 10 disappointments. He's number 1 here. And listen, I know there are some people that are honestly very, very content with what we got when it came to Otis. And I think Otis was better in Go Rush than he was in 7. So why is he higher on this list for me than he was for the 7's one? Well, because this is the second straight show where we still learned nothing about this character. And I know the counterpoint is Otis's identity isn't important. He's supposed to just be a concept, a crazy person. Anyone can be Otis. I get that, but I'll just be honest. I don't like it. If you're going to have a final villain be the final villain of back-to-back Yu-Gi-Oh shows, you got to give me a little bit more of a reason to care about him. He doesn't need to be Yuga. He doesn't need to be Udius. He can be his own character, but like, why did he go down the route that he went down? Why was that book in Yu-Gi-Oh 7's so important to him? And the fact that this show, teased the Otis reveal in this moment right here.
どうやら誰一人としてこのわしが何者であるのか理解している者はいないような。そうですね。まさかオテウス様が何かが起こっています。
That happened with 2 episodes left, and everybody watching was like, oh, we're definitely going to get this reveal. This reveal is going to be amazing. And they still didn't give us the reveal, and we know nothing about Otis's backstory. Yeah, it's tough out here, man. So Otis is number 1 for me. I know there are people that were totally content with it, and I respect that. But for me, it ended up being a massive, massive disappointment. And ladies and gentlemen, there are my top 10 disappointments in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Go Rush anime. If you want some more top 10 lists for Yu-Gi-Oh! Go Rush, I've done best characters, best duels, strongest duelists. Check those out on the channel. I'll link them down below. Leave some of your bigger disappointments down below as well. Can't wait to hear from you. Thank you as all so much for watching, and I hope you have an amazing day. Take care, guys.